What's up guys, Rideshare Guy here, and today I have a little bit more advanced video, but it's going to cover why you might need two phones to drive for Uber or Lyft or both at the same time. So basically the reason why this question came up is because I've got a few readers asking me about that, and they probably see people in forums or in Facebook groups talking about two phones. And basically what I'll tell you guys is that I only use one phone right now. So I've talked about my phone before. Right now I'm on a pretty good phone. I have a brand new LG G3, although now I think the G4 is out, but it's still less than a year old. And I'm a big fan of investing in a tool that you're going to use every day, like your phone or like your car. So I think it's very important that drivers have a good phone. And if you do have one phone, you can definitely do everything that you need to do. You can run the Uber and Lyft apps. You can use navigation, GPS. You can play music from Spotify or Google Music. And then you can also obviously browse Facebook and Rideshare Guy during your downtime, or listen to the podcast, whatever you need to do during your downtime. Now, we've kind of gone over some tips and tricks to kind of make sure that you keep your phone basically running at full capacity, whether you restart your phone at the beginning of every shift, clear all your apps before you go back online. Those are pretty basic, but so in my mind, I like using one phone, but there are a lot of instances and there are a lot of drivers out there using two phones. So what I will say is, and what I want to cover in this video is, you can definitely use one phone, but my advice is if you're going to have two phones, you really want to have a good reason why. Why are you going to use two phones instead of one? Think about it from a business perspective, right? Because obviously that second phone is going to cost you money, which we'll go into, but if you're going to have that second phone, what value is it adding? What benefit is it giving you? Is it just that you like the convenience or whatever it is? So that's what I'm going to talk about right now. And that's what I think you guys definitely want to consider if you make that switch from one to two phones. So the biggest thing that I see why having two phones is a benefit. There are a few different reasons, but a lot of drivers, first off, they like to see where other drivers are, right? So if you're out there and you're driving, Lyft used to have this feature, right? Lyft used to have this feature on when you were logged into driver mode, you could see where the other drivers are. Now, where that comes in handy is if you're sitting there waiting for a request, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, it's not super busy. You look up and there's someone right on top of you. If there's an Uber driver right on top of you and they're closer to the passenger, they're obviously going to get that request first. Lyft's algorithm works a little bit differently, but in principle, it's based on time and distance. But in principle, it's very similar to Uber. So basically, that's how drivers are using their second phone. They look at it and they say, hey, I can see, that's how they used to use it with Lyft. They would say, hey, I see, if they're on one phone, they say, hey, I see another driver right here, I'm going to move. Lyft doesn't have that feature. Uber obviously doesn't have that feature. So what a lot of drivers with two phones do is, instead of toggling back and forth between the passenger and driver app to see where other drivers are, they'll have their driver phone right here and they'll say that's where they can get requests, and then they'll have their second phone right here, and that's where they'll open up the Uber app or the Lyft app from the passenger side, and then that way they can see where the nearest drivers are. So with Lyft, you'll be able to see all the drivers around you, and with Uber, you're actually only able to see the closest 8 drivers to where you drop your pin. So that's why if you're out playing around on Uber on the passenger app and you're moving the pin around, you can kind of see where those drivers are, where those other drivers are, but it'll only show you the closest 8. Now, some people will just use one phone like me and toggle back and forth, but this is kind of a personal preference thing. So that's why you'll start to see some drivers using that second phone. And I mean, some people, I find that, you can get that second phone pretty cheaply, and you can either tether it to your main phone. And what tethering means, for those who don't know, is basically you turn your main phone into a Wi-Fi hotspot, and then you can use your second phone to basically tether onto that first phone's data. So that's kind of a common thing that you can do on Android. Sometimes you have to root your phone on Android. iPhones, some plans allow it, some don't. That's why some people jailbreak their iPhones. That's kind of a different topic though, so I won't get too much into it. Me personally, I have my phone, and basically what you can do on my phone is you can tether it. So on my AT&T LG G3, I can create a Wi-Fi hotspot. So if I did have a second phone, I could log on there. And then basically I said, that would prevent me from having to toggle back and forth. And sometimes there's a lag, and if you want it a little bit more in real time. So that's kind of where that benefit of the second phone comes in, and what you need to think about when you're thinking about data, and if you're going to get a second phone, how much you're going to spend. Now, one time where I think it never makes sense to get a second phone is if you're going to go and pay for that Uber iPhone, because that Uber iPhone is $10 a week. And I still see not a lot of drivers, but I still see some drivers with it. And that phone actually can't make calls. So all you're paying for is basically $10 a week in data, which I think you can get much cheaper plans, whether either it's through tethering or a second data plan altogether. So I probably don't think it makes a lot of sense to get pay for that second iPhone. But I mean, you can also get a pretty cheap second smartphone. So obviously, a lot of these top of the line Samsungs and LGs cost $500, $600, $700. And you can get them if you sign up for a 2-year contract, you can get them for $200. But if you're on your second phone, you probably don't want a whole nother full contract. But there are things like family plans where you can add on a second line that is super cheap. $30, AT&T lets you add on a family line for, I think, $20 plus 30 for unlimited data or whatever data plan you're on. So there's some pretty good deals out there that you can go and find and then be able to use that second phone. If you're looking for a good off-contract Android phone, I like the Nexus or the OnePlus One. And obviously, if you're going for that second phone, you probably don't need 2 top-of-the-line phones. So that's just kind of something to consider. Now, the main thing that is, if you guys are going to be spending money on something, if you're going to be buying a second phone, it has to serve some purpose, and you have to be able to see a return on your investment, whether it's just personal preference or convenience. Figure out what that's worth to you. However much you're spending per month, that's obviously cutting into your earnings. So there has to be some tangible benefit, whether it's helping you get more pickups, providing convenience for your passengers, or just saving you stress from not having to look back and forth at other, phones or apps or whatever it is. So just keep that in mind. Are you making the passenger experience better? Are you getting bigger tips? Are you getting better ratings? What's it helping you with? What's your return on your investments? I think that's a really good way to think about it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any further questions about what it's like using 2 phones or 1 phone, or what you need to be set up and driving, definitely let me know. Leave a comment, shoot me an email, find me on social media. I'm all over the place. If you guys have anything else, just let me know. All right, take care.